All right, enough of that. I hope everybody got their fix of that techno, whatever you want to call it, house music. So I'm waiting on JR to join. So in the meantime, he's in he's out in the Midwest somewhere shooting at turkey. So we will go ahead and get this thing started. So it's not an all nighter. Um, Lane is busy with jujitsu, and he's in Texas for a USPSA competition this weekend. So he's going to be out. He might actually be out of the podcast for the entire summer. I'm sure his jujitsu schedule gets rather busy, and the shooting season gets really busy. It doesn't slow down till October. So Joel is not going to be with us tonight. He has got some family obligations, so he can't get there. So right now we're just waiting on JR. I wanted to have him on specifically so we could talk about his fight. He has a fight coming up early in May, so wanted to talk about that and what he's doing to prepare, and obviously get his opinion on some of these other fights that have already occurred. So that's where we're going to start. I've got a whole list of fights we can discuss real quick. First one I'm going to talk about is Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman 2. Now, in fight number one, Kamaru was winning that fight, much like Izzy was winning his fight with Pereira. Leon was winning his, Kamaru was easily winning his fight against Leon. Had won all 4 rounds. It was a clean sweep thus far. Edwards hits him with that leg kick in the head and lights out. He's the new champ. I really didn't expect him to be able to keep Kamaru off of him. I thought Kamaru would do more wrestling. He did not. And wouldn't you know it, Leon beats him 2 times in a row. So good on him. I don't know that they'll be fighting anytime soon. If I were Kamaru, I think I'd want a couple of fights anyway. I think I'd want to take a little bit of time off, figure out what's going on, go back into training, work on some things with my team. Who knows? Maybe train with some other people, get a little bit more diversity there. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly. It's been pretty quiet from them, so it'll be interesting to see where his path goes from here. We do know that Leon has not been wanting to fight a couple of people, so it'll be interesting to see where things go from here. Bilal Muhammad wants that fight, but doesn't seem like Leon Edwards wants it. So another fight that I wanted to talk about or discuss is the Izzy Pereira fight. That fight didn't go very long. It only went into the second round, but it looked like Pereira was already starting to assert some dominance. It looked like he actually might have had Izzy in a little bit of trouble against the cage, and Izzy was able to crack him with that right hand, kind of take him off balance, and then hit him with another one, and that was pretty much it. The third one on the ground wasn't necessary, but you go until the ref says stop. So it is what it is. So that makes the score 3-1 in favor of Pereira. And immediately Izzy's like, "Whoop, that's it. This series is over. I'm done." Almost made me think that maybe he feels that, if they run it back a fifth time, it'll be 4-1 in favor of Pereira. Who knows? I mean, good on Izzy. He got his belt back. But I'm not so sure that, that might be the 9 out of 10 fights that Pereira wins. That might be the one loss that he has. But it was a pretty good crack. You got to give Izzy some credit. He cracked him pretty good up there on the right side or the left side of his face. So good for him. Now, the other one, which was very interesting that I wanted to talk about, was John Jones. Having been out of the UFC for 3 years, in and out of USADA, going from light heavyweight, where he was undefeated. Yes, he had a loss, but nobody beat him. He has a one loss on his record. He actually beat that guy pretty bad. He got disqualified for a 12-6 elbow as he was in the mount position, elbowing him in the face. So initially, when they stopped the fight, you're like, John Jones is celebrating, thinking he won, and then you find out he got disqualified, and that put a loss on his record. But literally, he's never lost to anybody in the octagon. So for him to say he was going to go in there against Cyril Gahn, who has world-class striking, he's a pretty scary dude from a striking perspective, and he was just going to go in there and make it look simple. And sure enough, 2 minutes into the fight, he's choking him out against the cage. That's impressive. So it'll be interesting to see where John goes from here. I know he and Stipe are supposed to fight later this summer, but I can't really find anything that on the UFC site anyway that actually confirms that, scrolling through. So I know it's supposed to be, and that's why I say on the UFC website. Let me just, yeah. So they're supposed to fight International Fight Week, which would be July 8th. And the only fight they have listed on the UFC website is Brandon Moreno against Alexandre Pantoja. So, or it could be Pantoja. But either way, that's the only fight listed on the UFC website for International Fight Week. But Jones and Stipe are supposed to throw down. Now, that would be a fight worth watching. I'm a fan of Moreno too, so that his fight will be interesting as well. But literally, that's the only fight on the card listed on the UFC website. Now, we're gonna jump ship for just a second. We're not gonna talk about the UFC or Bellator or any of that. We're actually gonna talk boxing for a moment. And the latest, greatest news, oh, there goes my phone chirping, is Jake Paul and Nate Diaz in an 8-round boxing match, going 8 rounds in Dallas. Shoot, now I didn't write down the date, but I've got it here. All right, give me just a moment, everybody. JR is telling me he needs a link, so let me make sure I give him the link. There we go. Hopefully that works for him. But, so let me pull up that date. I have it right here. The date with, so it's August 5th. You have Nate and Jake Paul, Nate Diaz and Jake Paul going at it. So that'll be a very interesting matchup when it happens. Now, Jake Paul is the betting favorite already. I think he's a minus 215. Where is it at? I put it down here. He is he's a minus 275, and Nate is a 215 underdog. So a $100 bet on Jake Paul nets you a $36.36 return. You're not retiring on that. Now, if you put $100 down on Diaz and win, that'll give you 215. That's not too shabby. So basically, the odds give Paul a 73% chance of winning and Diaz a 32% chance of winning. So we'll see where that goes. But that should be interesting. 185 pounds, 8 rounds. I give the strength advantage to Jake Paul. I give the head movement to Jake Paul. And I feel like in a boxing match with as much training, look, I'm not a Jake Paul fan. But I have to give him the advantage here because of the fact that he's been boxing longer. That's all he's been doing primarily up until now. So his boxing ring familiarity is way better than what Nate would have. So it'll be interesting to see, but I don't think Nate really stands much of a chance to win that fight. I think the odds might even be are just being nice to Nate, the odds makers. Now, getting back into past MMA slash UFC fights, the the fight between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev was fantastic, and Gaethje looked good like he always does. That man always brings it. He's worth spending your money on because he will fight until he is unconscious. I love that guy. That was one of the great fights here that we've had recently. Jorge Masvidal, as we all know, is retired after his Gilbert Burns fight. And it was weird because he said if he were to lose the fight, he's retiring. I don't need, but the way it came out, the way he said it, definitely did not seem normal for him. So it'll be interesting to see from Gilbert Burns' standpoint where he goes, because he's calling for a title fight. And I don't know that Leon Edwards wants that either. So I think Leon Edwards he might. I mean, it'll be interesting to see who he wants in the next title fight. It's been a little quiet there too. But Gilbert Burns definitely wants the fight. I think the other fighter that Leon does not want to fight is Colby Covington. And I tend to agree. I do believe Colby probably needs to have a few more winning fights and not so many losses. So I can't disagree with Leon on that one. Someone else definitely needs a fight. I personally think Bilal Muhammad should be the number one contender, and he should fight for the title. I also would be okay with Bilal and Gilbert Burns fighting for that number one, and the winner getting to take on Leon Edwards. I think that would also be a pretty good outcome, and I feel like they could fight fairly soon. And still, Leon doesn't want to fight till the fall. So if they were to fight early summer like June, then the number one contender could still fight come this fall. So he could still meet that time constraint that he's looking for. All right, looks like JR's having an issue with his phone. So we'll see if he makes it on or not. All right, so moving along. Chris Curtis, he just had a pretty good fight with one of the toughest guys in the UFC, Kevin Gastelum. They slugged it out for a while. Chris Curtis hit him with some pretty good shots, too. They hit each other with some pretty good shots, but Curtis hit him with some pretty hard shots, and Gastelum kept going. Now, Chris Curtis has filed an appeal because of the headbutt that occurred in the second round. When they showed the replay, you could see there was definitely an accidental headbutt, and it seemed to, lack of a better term, rock Chris Curtis just a little bit. So because of that, Gastelum was able to pick up some momentum and win the round. And Chris Curtis feels like that was the difference in the fight. So he's filing an appeal. He's contesting the fight. I can't imagine that they would overturn the. They wouldn't give him the win, obviously, but they could turn it into a no contest. So we'll see where that goes. Now, Marlon Vera. He's had some really, really strong outings lately, but it wasn't against Corey Sandhagen. That fight, to me, he was extremely flat when he came out and fought Corey Sandhagen. I didn't feel like he really gave Corey much of a fight till later on. And even then, he just seemed flat, like his energy level just wasn't there. You can tell when a fighter has the energy and they're putting out and they're trying to do things and the other person's skill level just makes it very difficult. Corey Sandhagen is a great fighter, don't get me wrong. But you could tell it wasn't necessarily what Corey Sandhagen was doing as much as what it was Marlon Vera wasn't doing. He just didn't have the level of effort, in my opinion. Holly Holm, she looked good in her win over Yana Santos. I thought she looked good. It was nice to see her back and striking the way she did. And I mean, who expected a pep talk afterwards about sex trafficking and all that other stuff? I was not expecting that, but good for her. Now, the next one I want to talk about, I'm going to take a minute or so here. I'm going to change fighters over here. I want to actually look up somebody's record before I start talking about them. I want to make sure I got this right. Yep, I was right. So, Peter Yan, he got absolutely and utterly dominated by Merab Dvalishvili. So, like nothing I've seen, and for someone who I thought possibly won the second fight between him and Aljamain Sterling, it wasn't close. I mean, he literally, I think there were 48 or 49 takedowns recorded in the fight. And Merab beat him on the feet, beat him at striking. That guy, if he and Aljamain Sterling were not such good friends and will refuse to fight each other, then I would say Merab would be the champ as soon as he fought Aljamain Sterling, based on his fight with Peter Yan. Nobody's dominated Peter Yan like that. That was crazy. Sean O'Malley beat him with a split decision, but that could have gone either way. Aljamain beat him, split decision. Same thing. Merab, not even close. I mean, you could almost give him a 10-8 for each round. It was crazy. He got like 10 takedowns on average per round. It's like 48, 49, 50 takedowns. It was a crazy number. Crazy. But that was very impressive. So the moment that Aljamain decides to move up to the next weight class, then I think Merab is your next champion, bantamweight champion. All right, so let's talk upcoming fights. Let's talk ESPN 44 tomorrow. Let me get back there real quick. Now this I like. You've got number 2. So here's your headliner. Number 2, Max Holloway against number 4, Arnold Allen in the featherweight division. I like this fight a lot. I think this is going to be full of fireworks. This is going to be a good fight. There should be a lot of energy from beginning to end. So I'm excited for this. Looking forward to seeing how the fight goes. and who can take advantage of what throughout the fight. The other ones on that card, you have Edson Barboza making an appearance. He's fighting. You have Clay Guida. He's fighting. You have Ed Herman. All three of them typically bring a good fight to the card. They're all about action. They're not ones to sit around and do nothing. Barboza's leg kicks are crazy. Those things hurt watching them. I feel sorry for the guy getting kicked. With Clay Guida, you've got a guy with a gas tank that never seems to go below 3/4. He can go 5 rounds, and he's going to be about 70% gas tank by the end of the fight, maybe 80. The guy just keeps going. Ed Herman, like I said, that'll be a good one. Now, Edson Barboza is the if you want to call co-main event. There is the next to the main card, or next to the main fight. He's fighting Billy Quarantillo, so that should be interesting as well. That'll be a good fight. You have number 4, Brandon Royval versus number 5, Matheus Nicolau. Again, now you've got 2 high-ranking featherweights getting ready to put on a fight, and I think they are not. Correction. So they're not even, I hope they changed the order. I hope the order on the website's wrong, but that should be the main fight on the preliminary card. As of right now, it is not. But I imagine it's got to be. You can't have a number 4 and a number 5 duking it out and on an undercard and not having them the main fight on that preliminary card. Another fight we have is number 9, Pedro Munoz, and number 13, Chris Gutierrez, both bantamweights, so should be 125ers going at it. I'm sorry, 135ers going at it. So that'll be a good fight. And one of my favorite knockouts of all time was Lando Venata. Lando Venata with his spinning wheel kick in 2016, and he is also on the card. He is fighting Daniel Zellhuber from Mexico. So doesn't mean he's going to ever get that fantastic of a knockout ever again, but at least it's interesting. There's always that possibility. Now, moving along. So that card that we just talked about is going to be tomorrow, Saturday, April 15th. Now, April 22nd, so a week from tomorrow, is headlined by 2 heavyweights, Sergey Pavlovich and Curtis Blades. That is going to be a rock'em sock'em robot type of a fight. That one's going to be interesting. You have number 3, Sergey Pavlovich, against number 4, Curtis Blades. I imagine that the winner of that probably will get the winner of, I say probably, who knows, the John Jones-Stipe fight. Because at that point, Sergey or Curtis, whoever wins, should be next in line at that point. So that'll be that. And that's to do. Now, Curtis can bang, but Curtis loves to wrestle. So it'll be interesting to see if Sergey can prevent the takedowns. He's got to stop the takedowns in order to win and survive that fight. I'll say the co-main event. There is no championship fight, so I'm just going to say the co-main event is a bantamweight bout between number 8, Yadong Song, and number 10, Ricky Simon. And I think that is going to be, man, I love these lighter weight guys who can wrestle, can bang, can get it going, because they are full of energy. So that'll be another very interesting fight. So if you don't have ESPN Plus, I feel for you. The one tomorrow night is the UFC on ESPN, so you'll be able to watch it. The one a week from now with Brad Tavares is not. I'm sorry, Brad Tavares. Sergey Pavlovich and Curtis Blades. Brad Tavares is on the card, so that's why I said that. But that's going to be another interesting fight. As I just revealed, Brad Tavares is on the card. Who else is on there? Bobby Green, Jared Gordon. As a matter of fact, Bobby Green and Jared Gordon are fighting each other. You have number 9, Carol Rosa. Where are we at here? Women's featherweight bout. Number 9, Carol Rosa from Brazil against Norma Dumont, also from Brazil. So that should be a good fight. You have Ronnie Yaya. If you're not familiar with Ronnie Yaya, he's a world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. When he was in the WEC, that dude was scary. He was that at that time he was really competing a lot in international jiu-jitsu competition. So I'm not sure where he's at today with all of that other competition, but it doesn't matter. He still has world-class jiu-jitsu, but I don't think his striking has ever left anybody in awe. If he could really up his striking game, I think it would dramatically increase his ability to beat people via submission. When he was in the WEC and MMA being younger than it is now, you add 13 years to it, things progress rather rapidly. He was able to get many more submissions, get people down, wrestle them, and get submissions. It's been a while. Now, to me, the most interesting fight of the night, other than the ones we've talked about, the Sergey Curtis top bill. I'm looking forward to that, as well as the Yadong Song and Ricky Simon. But Usman's brother, Mohammed, is fighting on the card against Junior Tafa. And they're on the early card. So we'll have to see how that goes. So I just got a message from JR. He's making a third attempt to try to get on. He's having issues with his phone getting on. So we'll see if he joins us. And we'll probably recap a little bit of this. But more than likely we'll talk about his stuff, a few fights, and then we'll call it a night. All right, so moving on from the 22nd, there's a 2-week gap, and then you have UFC 288 on May 6th. That is a massive fight. Oh, actually, I stand corrected. There is another UFC fight night in between, and but I think this has changed. So there is a card that night. It was supposed to be Armin Sarukian and Renato Moicano, but I think something has happened there, and that fight is in jeopardy or it's off. So I'm going to skip over that card for now. But it looks like there's a bunch of more of your up-and-comer fighters on that card than most. Now that does bring us to the May 6th UFC 288 card. And this card is going to be banging for one reason now. I was going to say two because it has your Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo main event championship fight, and your Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush co-main event. Unfortunately, Oliveira got injured, and just a few hours ago it was reported that he's out of UFC 288. So I'm not sure if they're going to try to find another competitor for Beneil, for him to fight on the card, or if they're going to scrap the fight, postpone it. I'm not really sure what at this point they're going to do. We should probably hear something tomorrow. Now that's on the main card. Also on the main card, women's strawweight bout, Jessica Andrade and Xiaonan Yan from China. I I like the Asian fighters. They bring energy, they bring striking, they bring grappling. I like it. I think this is going to be a fun fight to watch. After that, or before that, on the card, you actually have Bryce Mitchell on the main card. So there are some good fights. On the undercard, you've got Drew Dober. He's the main event on the prelims. So I think that's a really good one. And you have, I'll scroll down to it so I get the names correct. So on the early card, the early prelims, you have number 5 strawweight Marina Rodriguez against number 9 Virna Jandiroba. Again, you have Brazil fighter versus Brazil fighter. So should be an interesting fight there. Phil Hawes is on the card. So it's going to be a good card. My biggest question right now is what are they doing with the Oliveira Benel Dariush fight? Because we're only talking, what, 3 weeks? Well, 4 weeks. No, 3 weeks. Roughly 3 weeks. So that's all they have to figure out another fight. Doesn't give them a whole lot of time, but it's better than a week. So we'll see what they do. That brings us up to UFC Fight Night, May 13th. It's going to be another very interesting fight card. And I say that because the card is once again headlined by heavyweight fighters. This time you have Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Gelton Almeida. Now you have number 9 against number 12. They're going to be banging. So it'll be interesting to see if it even goes well, I guess it's a main event, so it's going to be 25 minutes. The second or co-main event of that card, as we'll call it, I think should be the headliner, which is 2 light heavyweights, number 5 Anthony Smith and number 7 Johnny Walker. Those guys are going to bang, and they are going to bang. And this is going to, I don't know how this fight goes the distance, but we'll see. Another fight that I am looking forward to on this card is let me scroll down to it here. So it's on the prelim card, the preliminary card, and it's Matt Brown, the immortal Matt Brown, and Court McGee. That's going to be a banging fight. That'll be interesting. Man, Matt Brown loves to throw elbows like nobody's business. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But Court McGee is also he's been around a while, so he's a very savvy fighter. So these two, you have 2 old savvy guys going at it. I like it. I like it a lot. You also have, where is she at? It looks like it's the very first fight, according to the list on the UFC website, the very first fight on that undercard, on the early prelims, is Mackenzie Dern and Angela Hill. So it's interesting to me that you have a number 7 and a number 13 starting the card off. Especially when typically that isn't televised. The only way you can really see that is if you have ESPN Plus and you can, well, it's a UFC Fight Night. It's not an ESPN, so the whole thing is going to be on ESPN Plus more than likely. Unless ESPN decides to run the preliminary card, not the early prelims, but the regular preliminary card in that 8 to 10 slot. So we'll have to wait and see. And the last upcoming fight that I wanted to talk about is Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena 3. This is going to be June 10th in Vancouver. I find this interesting. I was reading recently where Juliana had given an interview with somebody and was saying that basically Amanda is being forced to take the fight, to sign and take the fight by the UFC. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just telling you what I had been reading. But it's an interesting situation. I guess she didn't want to fight her again. And also, according to what I read, it seemed like Juliana felt, she said, take the knockdown out of the fight, that she felt that fight was a lot closer and that her armbar with Amanda was a lot closer to being finished than people think. And the fight itself was a lot closer than people give credit for. I am looking forward to that fight. Juliana handled her very quickly in the first fight, but I felt that Amanda just basically dominated her from my perspective in fight number 2. So Juliana wants the opportunity to do what Amanda did between fights 1 and 2, where Amanda went back, completely changed her strategy, changed her fight team, prepared differently, and did different things. Came out southpaw to throw off Juliana and do some things. Well, Juliana wants time, or wanted time, to go back to the drawing board, to train on some different things, and be able to bring a different fight to number 3. So she wants the trilogy. This should be it. My only thing is, okay, if you beat Amanda, then I almost feel like because Amanda's had that title for so long, that maybe Amanda would still deserve another rematch. But if Juliana loses, I think Juliana's time, at least for now, in the immediate future, is done. You know, 2 more fights, she wins those against, top 5 competition, then you can't say no. You're like, okay, you've earned it. You beat 2 people in the top 5, so you deserve that opportunity. All right, so give me just a moment. I'm going to put on a I'm going to put the countdown back on for just a moment. Is that really what I want to do? Let me see what I've got here. Actually, here we go. All right. So I'm going to take a quick break, just a couple of minutes, and I'm going to be right back. All right. Enough of the break. I'm back. Sent a couple of links to JR. Hopefully he can make it. But again, he's out hunting turkey, so he may not even have enough of anything to contact the rest of the world. So he may just have to fire or let off some arrows up into the air that are on fire. So we'll see. Now, one last thing, I made a mistake earlier I need to correct, and it was Leon Edwards didn't want to fight Colby Covington. That's the guy he does not want to fight. He said he doesn't understand how he deserves a championship fight, and I don't disagree with him. I don't think Colby has really done much of anything lately other than lose. I think he's like 1-3 in his last 4 fights, so that doesn't earn you a championship fight. But Gilbert and Bilal Muhammad, they definitely, I feel those two fighting like June-ish time frame, then I think that sets them up, as long as they don't beat the tar out of each other and need 6 months to recover. Leon wants to fight in October. He thinks the Abu Dhabi scene would be a fun fight, which is in October. So I think June, I mean, unless they've both been training, which I can see Muhammad staying pretty close to fight weight. Gilbert just fought not too long ago. So June might still be too early for him. I don't know. So they may just have to decide one of those two will get the next title shot and give them the title shot. So maybe have Colby fight Gilbert or Colby fight Bilal for the next round. So it'll be interesting. Now, the other interesting part is Khamzat Chimaev has been talking a lot lately about fighting Izzy, and Izzy's like, nope, not going to do it. I've also heard Izzy wanting to go up to 205 and fighting Jamal Hill. Now, Izzy already got throttled once up there. So I don't know that he deserves a light heavyweight title shot any more than anybody else does outside of the top 5. So I don't know that that's a good thing. If Pereira moves up, then I think you give Pereira a few, because that's what he said. Pereira came out, I think yesterday, the day before, I don't remember what day now, and said his next fight will be at 205, but he's also watching Izzy to see how he acts. Because if Izzy, I'm not sure what he means, but I guess if he feels like Izzy disrespects him, then he'll come back down to 185. He says he has no problem making 185, and he can make 185 for the rest of his life. So, interesting. He did make a comment that, he's celebrating like crazy. He said he understands he wanted to get a win over him, and he finally got it. But I guess he's watching to see how if Izzy keeps, quote unquote, celebrating, then I guess that could be enough to warrant Pereira to come back down and fight again at 185. But right now the plan is to move to 205. And I think there are some definitely banger fights up there for him. That'll be very interesting. I don't think Izzy at all deserves a chance to go up to 205 from 185 and fight for a belt again. So he needs to earn it at 205 next time. But what I was getting at was Khamzat Chimaev has been talking a lot about wanting to fight Izzy, and Izzy's like, no, you have to fight some other people and work your way up the totem pole. Now, I think Izzy can knock him out for sure. If he can knock out Pereira, he can knock out Khamzat Chimaev. The question is, can he keep him away, especially in that second round, well enough from being taken down and submitted in those early rounds? That's the question. I mean, look, Izzy's beaten everybody that has challenged him, even Pereira. He got it's 1-1 now between those two. So he was able to do that. So he's been able to recapture the belt. He's beaten everybody else in the division. I think that's an interesting fight. It's an intriguing fight. He's an up and comer. There's a lot of energy behind his name. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. It'll be very, very interesting. But so that's where we stand. That's all the latest that I wanted to talk about and review. I am looking forward to that Nunes Pena 3. I'm really, even though it's not on the website, I'm extremely looking forward to John Jones and Stipe. So Stipe's got some wrestling ability, not to the level of John Jones, but Stipe has much better wrestling than Cyril Gahn ever did, or ever probably ever will at this point. He's quote unquote late to the game in the MMA version of things, but it'll be interesting. Interesting for sure. If John Jones can dominate Stipe the way that he dominated Gahn, then I think he's going to be on top of that division for a while, because I don't see anybody else having all of the necessary skills to defeat Jones as long as he wants to keep fighting. He's tall, he's big, he's got reach for days. He's still got one of the longest reaches in the UFC, even at heavyweight. So, and his ring IQ, his MMA IQ is just off the chart. The guy's very, very good. So it'll be interesting to see what becomes of that. I would love for Dana to say, you know what, Izzy? Your next fight's going to be Khamzat. Because he's beaten everybody else. He hasn't beaten Chimaev yet. So what the heck? If Chimaev thinks he's that good, it'll be a huge sell. People will buy it. There will be a crap ton of pay-per-view buys on that one. And let Izzy get in there and take on the next big thing. So it will definitely be very interesting. So, well, that's what we've got. That's what I've got for tonight. And you guys take care and enjoy the fights.